A stranger in the studio. Tomas was kneading a mound of earthy clay when the soft chime of his studio door announced an unexpected visitor. He glanced up, wiping his hands on his apron, expecting perhaps a late student or a delivery that he'd forgotten about. Instead, standing awkwardly by the entrance was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. "Hello," Tomas called out, a note of hesitation in his voice. The figure stepped forward into the light, revealing features that were distinctly non-human. Her skin shimmered like mica, and her eyes, large and luminous, reflected a spectrum of colors that Tomas had only seen in oil slicks. "Hi," she replied, her voice melodious but uncertain. "Are you Tomas, the ceramist?" "That's me," Tomas nodded, approaching slowly. "And you are?" "I'm Lyria," she said, extending a hand that split into several slender, flexible appendages. Tomas hesitated for a moment before shaking it, intrigued by its gentle grip. "I've come a long way to meet you." "From where exactly?" Tomas asked, leading her further into the cluttered space filled with pottery wheels, kilns, and shelves laden with ceramic pieces. "Xylenia. It's not nearby," Lyria explained with a small smile. "I'm here because I need your help." Tomas raised his eyebrows, gesturing for her to continue as they reached a workbench. He pulled up a couple of stools, and they both sat down. "My planet's ecosystem is failing," Lyria began, her eyes scanning the array of tools and clay samples around them. "We need a symbol, something powerful to rally the rejuvenation efforts. Your work with clay, how you breathe life into the soil, it's exactly what we need. You want me to make—" "What, exactly?" Tomas was intrigued, but still processing the fact that he was discussing planetary ecological restoration with an alien. "A bowl," Lyria said quickly. "But not just any bowl. One that embodies the essence of growth and revival. Something that can inspire my people." Tomas considered her request, looking around his studio, a place of creation and, admittedly, magic of a sort. "I can try," he finally said. "But it won't just be me. I'll need to bring in a couple of colleagues. This sounds like a project bigger than just one potter." "Of course," Lyria agreed, her face lighting up. "I would appreciate all the help we can get." Over the next hour, they discussed the specifics. Tomas sketched ideas on scraps of paper, each stroke accompanied by explanations of symbolism in art and how it might translate to Lyria's needs. They were deep into the planning phase when the door chimed again. Marco and Ji-hoon, fellow ceramic artists and Tomas's close friends, stepped in. Tomas introduced them to Lyria, explaining the project with an excitement that was contagious. "Sounds like a challenge," Ji-hoon remarked, examining the sketches with a critical eye. "But an exciting one. I think we can incorporate some traditional earth techniques with whatever you can teach us about Xylenian aesthetics." Lyria nodded eagerly. "I can show you our symbols, our colors. You'll see, they're quite harmonious with your earth styles." As they gathered around the sketches, their conversation buzzed with creative energy. Tomas felt a surge of inspiration. This project, perhaps his most unusual yet, wasn't just about making another pot. It was about bridging worlds, crafting hope out of clay and earth, and working together to create something truly extraordinary. As the meeting drew to a close, they all agreed to start first thing in the morning. Lyria thanked them, her eyes sparkling with gratitude and anticipation. Tomas watched her leave, then turned to his friends. "This is going to be something special, isn't it?" he said. Marco clapped him on the shoulder. "The most special, I reckon. Let's make something amazing." Together, they began to clear space in the studio for what would be their most audacious project yet. As the sun set, the studio was filled with a new kind of energy, one that promised not only art but also a meeting of worlds and minds. Chapter 2. Clay of Life. The morning light spilled into the studio as Tomas and his team prepared for the day's work. Marco was already at the large mixing table, blending different types of clay to achieve the perfect consistency, while Ji-hoon set up a new, large potter's wheel specifically brought in for the project. Lyria arrived just as Tomas was finishing his first cup of coffee. She carried a small, holographic device that, when activated, projected images of Xylenian landscapes and art into the room. "Good morning," she greeted, setting the device on the central table where everyone could see. "I thought these might help inspire us." The images flickered through various scenes: lush, green valleys that stretched under purple skies, intricate murals on walls of what looked like enormous public buildings, and symbols that resonated with a vibrant cultural heritage. "Beautiful," Marco commented, pausing his work to watch. "These symbols here, can you tell us more about them?" Lyria pointed at a spiral-like design that appeared frequently in the images. "This is the spiral of growth. It represents life's continuous unfolding and rebirth. It's very sacred. We should incorporate this into the design," Ji-hoon suggested, sketching rapidly on a notepad. "Maybe around the rim of the bowl?" Tomas nodded, watching the interaction with a smile. "Let's do a rough shape first. We'll refine as we go along. Lyria, do you want to try your hand at the wheel? It's quite different from Xylenian tools, I presume." Lyria looked apprehensive but intrigued. "I would like that very much." With Ji-hoon's guidance, Lyria positioned herself at the wheel, her tentacle-like appendages wrapping around the clay with surprising dexterity. Tomas and Marco watched as the clay began to take shape under her skilled touch. It was a unique sight, alien hands crafting earthly material into something that would carry a piece of her world. "That's it. Keep the pressure steady," Ji-hoon coached, adjusting the speed of the wheel slightly. "Nice and easy." As the bowl began to form, Marco leaned over to Tomas, whispering, "She's a natural. Look at her go." Tomas grinned. "I told you, there's something special about her." The morning progressed with each of them taking turns at the wheel, adding their own touch to the bowl. The spiral of growth design became a prominent feature, elegantly encircling the upper part of the bowl, which Ji-hoon detailed with expert precision. During a short break, they gathered around the holographic images again, discussing more about Xylenian culture. "How do you usually celebrate the creation of such an artifact?" Tomas asked, genuinely curious. "With a festival," Lyria explained. "Artists from all over come together to showcase their work, share techniques, and celebrate the crafts that have been passed down through generations." "We should do something similar when we finish," Marco suggested. "A small celebration, at least. It would be a nice way to honor both our efforts and your traditions, Lyria." "I would love that," Lyria smiled, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and excitement. As the day wore on, the bowl took on a life of its own. Each touch, each molding, added depth not only to its form but also to their understanding of each other's worlds. They talked and laughed, the barriers of unfamiliarity slowly dissolving into a budding friendship. By the end of the day, they stood around the wheel, admiring their handiwork, a beautifully crafted bowl that was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol of unity and artistic collaboration. "We did good today," Tomas said, putting an arm around Marco and Ji-hoon. "Really good." Lyria looked at the bowl, then at her new friends. "Yes, we did. Thank you. I can't wait to show this to my people." "And we can't wait to hear all about it," Ji-hoon added, as they began cleaning up, the studio filled with a sense of accomplishment and the anticipation of more creative days to come. Chapter 3. Techniques and Tentacles. The sun was just beginning to peek through the studio windows when Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon gathered around their latest project, coffee in hand, ready to continue their work on the ceremonial bowl. The mood was light, filled with anticipation for the day's tasks. "I brought some new glazes to try," Marco announced, unpacking boxes of vibrant colors. "I thought we could experiment with something that mirrors the Xylenian landscape colors Lyria showed us." Lyria, who had just arrived, smiled approvingly. "That sounds wonderful. Our artisans often use colors to tell stories in our art." Tomas looked over the glazes, his fingers brushing against the cool bottles. "Let's try a blend of these too," he suggested, holding up a deep green and a bright blue. "They remind me of the valley images you showed us yesterday." "Good choice," Ji-hoon agreed, setting up the testing area with sample tiles. "Let's see how they interact on our clay body. Different compositions can yield quite surprising results." As Ji-hoon prepared the test tiles, Lyria joined Marco at the large table, where the partially dried bowl awaited its next phase of embellishment. "Marco, could you show me more about your carving techniques?" Lyria asked. "I noticed how you handled the tools yesterday. Very precise." "Of course." Marco was eager to share his skills. He selected a fine carving tool and demonstrated on a spare piece of clay. "It's all about control and letting the tool do most of the work. Try to hold it like this," he said, adjusting her grip slightly. Lyria mimicked his movements, her tentacle-like appendages wrapping around the tool with an added level of finesse. "Like this?" she asked, carving a delicate pattern into the clay. "Exactly like that," Marco exclaimed, impressed. "You're a quick learner." Tomas and Ji-hoon joined them, watching as Lyria applied the new technique to the bowl's surface, adding intricate designs that complemented the spiral of growth. "This is turning into a real masterpiece," Tomas said, his voice filled with pride. "Each of you is bringing something unique to this project." The morning passed quickly as they each took turns adding elements to the bowl, ensuring that every detail was perfect. After the embellishments, it was time to discuss the firing process. "Firing is critical," Tomas explained. "It's where all our work either comes together beautifully or doesn't." He didn't want to say it, but the risk of failure in firing was always present. "What temperatures do your kills usually reach on Xylenia?" Ji-hoon asked, curious about her technical knowledge. "We use energy fields rather than heat," Lyria explained. "It achieves a similar result, but through a different process. I'm intrigued to see how your kills work." "We'll do a bisque fire first," Tomas said, leading her to the kiln area. "It hardens the clay enough to handle, but it's still porous enough for the glaze to adhere." As they prepared the kiln, Lyria's fascination with earth techniques grew. "It's amazing how different our methods are, yet we aim for similar outcomes," she mused. "Yeah, it's the universal language of art," Marco chimed in. "Different words, same story." With the bowl safely in the kiln, the group cleaned up and prepared for the next phase. They gathered around the hologram projector again, discussing the upcoming glazing. "Once we get the bisque results, we'll test those glaze combinations you picked," Ji-hoon said, looking at the samples they had prepared earlier. "Then the final firing," Tomas added. "If all goes well, we'll have not just a bowl, but a bridge between two worlds." Lyria nodded, her eyes reflecting the flickering images of her home. "More than that," she said softly, "a bridge between friends." The day concluded with plans for the next steps, each of them more connected not just to the project but to each other. They left the studio with a sense of accomplishment and a deep curiosity about how their combined efforts would manifest in the finished piece. Chapter 4. Shaping Clay, Shaping Hearts. As the early morning light filtered through the studio windows, Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon were already deep in discussion over the next steps for their project. The kiln had cooled overnight, and the anticipation of seeing their work spurred them on. "All right, "Let's see how our bowl has fared," Tomas said, leading the way to the kiln. The trio, accompanied by Lyria, held their breath as the kiln door swung open. Inside, the bowl sat intact, its surface smooth and ready for glazing. "It survived!" Marco exclaimed, relief evident in his voice. Lyria stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful, even in this raw state," she remarked, her fingers hovering over the ceramic, careful not to touch. "Now for some color," Ji-hoon said, pulling out the test tiles they had prepared. The samples displayed an array of greens and blues that mirrored the Xylenian landscapes. "These came out great. I think the blend we chose will look spectacular." The group agreed on the glaze, and Marco began preparing the mix. Meanwhile, Tomas turned to Lyria with a smile. "Would you like to do the honors of the first brush stroke?" Lyria nodded eagerly, taking the brush from Tomas. As she applied the glaze, her technique was gentle, almost reverent. The others watched, each taking their turn to add to the glazing, their movements harmonious. As the morning progressed, the conversation turned personal. Tomas, always curious about other cultures, asked Lyria more about her life on Xylenia. "We are much like you, more than you might think," Lyria explained. "We have families, we work, we have celebrations and hardships. But art is central to our existence. It's our way of expressing who we are, what we dream." "And do you have someone special back home?" Marco inquired with a mischievous grin. Lyria paused, a blush coloring her cheeks. Not like that. My focus has been on my studies and my art." Marco winked at Tomas, who chuckled. "Well, you're among friends here," he said. "And speaking of art, how do you feel about Earth's music? Ji-hoon here is quite the guitarist." Ji-hoon's eyes lit up. "Yes, let's add some tunes to our creative process." He fetched his guitar, and soon the studio was filled with the soft strumming of chords, adding a new layer of warmth to the space. The relaxed atmosphere helped deepen their bond, turning the studio into a place of shared stories and laughter. As they worked, Lyria taught them a few phrases in her language, delighting in their attempts to pronounce the unfamiliar sounds. As the day drew to a close, the bowl, now vibrant with hues of earth and sky, was set aside to dry before the final firing. The group cleaned up, their chatter light and easy. "I've learned so much from you all," Lyria said as she washed her hands beside Tomas. "Not just about pottery, but about friendship." Tomas smiled, handing her a towel. "And we've learned from you. It's not every day we get to meet someone from another planet and create something beautiful together." Their eyes met, and there was a moment of silent acknowledgement of the unique connection they were building. Marco clapped his hands, breaking the moment. "How about we grab some dinner? I know a place that has the best pizza you'll ever taste. What do you say, Lyria? Ready for another Earth experience?" Lyria laughed, nodding enthusiastically. "I would love that. Thank you." As they left the studio, the setting sun cast long shadows, and the air was cool and crisp. The evening promised new experiences, and as they walked together, the conversation never faltered. It was clear that the project was not just about crafting a bowl. It was about crafting lasting relationships. Chapter 5. The Festival of Renewal. After dinner the previous evening, the team returned to the studio invigorated, eager to experience the final phase of their project. The bowl, now waiting for its last firing, had become a symbol of their united efforts and friendship. As they prepared the kiln, Lyria introduced a new idea. Back on Xylenia, we have a tradition of celebrating the completion of a significant art piece with a small ceremony. I think it would be wonderful to have something similar here. Tomas, always enthusiastic about incorporating cultural elements, agreed immediately. That sounds like a fantastic idea. What does the ceremony involve? Lyria explained. It's quite simple but meaningful. We gather around the artwork, share what we've learned or felt during the creation process, and then we conclude with a feast under the stars. I love that, Ji-hoon said. It's like we're not just firing the bowl, but also sealing our experiences and memories into it. Marco, who had been setting up the kiln, joined in. Let's do it. And I say we add a little earth flavor to it, maybe some live music, and I could whip up some of my famous barbecue. With the plan set, the team focused on the final preparations. Tomas and Ji-hoon carefully loaded the bowl into the kiln, ensuring it was perfectly centered for an even firing. As the kiln began to hum with energy, Lyria pulled out her holographic device again, this time to show scenes from similar celebrations on Xylenia. The images displayed groups of people, diverse in appearance and attire, gathered in vibrant communal spaces, their faces lit by the glow of art and fellowship. "This is beautiful," Tomas remarked, watching the scenes unfold. "It really shows how art can bring people together, no matter where they're from." "Yes, it transcends language and culture," Lyria agreed, her voice soft with nostalgia. "I'm glad I can share this with you." As the firing process took several hours, the group decided to set up for the evening's celebration. They moved tables and chairs outside, stringing lights around the studio's small courtyard. Ji-hoon brought out his guitar, tuning it for the night's performance. Marco, meanwhile, was in charge of the grill, his expertise not limited to ceramics but extending impressively into culinary arts. "Hope you all are ready for some good eats," he called out as he flipped some burgers, the aroma filling the air and mixing with the subtle scent of evening flowers. The atmosphere was festive, with each of them contributing to the setup. Lyria, who had quickly adapted to their customs, assisted with decorating, her delicate touch evident in the way she arranged the lights and table settings. As dusk fell and the kiln cycle ended, the group gathered around the now cooling equipment, anticipation building for the unveiling. Tomas turned to Lyria. "Would you like to do the honors and open the kiln?" Lyria nodded, her hands slightly trembling with excitement as she slowly opened the kiln door. The heat rushed out, and as it cleared, the bowl stood unscathed, its glaze reflecting the flickering lights beautifully. "It's perfect," she whispered, almost in awe. The team erupted in cheers, their voices mingling with relief and joy. They gathered around the bowl, each taking a moment to admire their work and share what the project had meant to them. "For me," Tomas started, his eyes on the bowl, "this was more than just pottery. It was about making connections, understanding a little more about a part of the universe I'd never thought I'd touch." Marco added, "And I got to merge my love for food with my love for art, cooking up something on the grill and in the kiln." Ji-hoon strummed a few chords before speaking. It was a chance to add music to the mix, making our celebration even richer. Lyria took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over her new friends. "For me, this bowl is a symbol of new beginnings, a testament to what we can achieve together, despite coming from different worlds." With that, the evening continued under the stars, filled with music, laughter, and a shared sense of accomplishment. The festival of renewal, though far from Xylenia, felt right at home among friends. Chapter 6. Masterpiece of Unity. The morning after the festival of renewal was serene and quiet. The studio held the residual warmth of the previous night's celebrations, filled with laughter and shared stories. As Tomas arrived, he found Marco and Ji-hoon already there, quietly discussing the next steps for securing the bowl for Lyria's journey back to Xylenia. "Morning, guys," Tomas greeted them, picking up a cloth to wipe down some of the used tools from last night. "Morning, Tomas," Marco replied. "We were just talking about how to best pack the bowl for transport. It needs to be secure, given it's going to travel beyond what our usual packaging deals with." "Right," Tomas nodded. We need something more than bubble wrap and hope. Any ideas? Ji-hoon, who had been flipping through a supplier catalogue, looked up. I think I found just the thing. They have these new high-density foam inserts that mold to the shape of the object. It should keep the bowl from moving at all during transport. Perfect, Marco said, peering over Ji-hoon's shoulder at the catalogue. Let's order it then. The sooner we get it, the better. Lyria walked in during their discussion, her eyes bright and thankful. Good morning, everyone. I can't thank you enough for last night. It was more beautiful than I could have imagined. We're just glad you enjoyed it, Tomas smiled. And today, we're figuring out how to get your bowl back home safely. That's important, Lyria agreed. I appreciate your diligence. The conversation shifted as they began to clear the space, organizing tools and materials that had been left out in the festive chaos. As they worked, Lyria brought up a topic that had been on her mind. I was thinking, she started, about how this project has brought us together. Back on Xylenia, I would love to set up an exchange program of sorts. Perhaps artists from here could visit, and vice versa. That's an incredible idea, Tomas responded enthusiastically. Cultural exchange through art. I love it. I'd be interested, Marco chimed in. Never thought my art could take me to another planet. And I could teach some guitar lessons, Ji-hoon added with a grin. Bring a bit of earth music to Xylenia. Their planning was interrupted by a delivery at the studio door. Tomas signed for the package, the high-density foam inserts Ji-hoon had ordered. They unpacked it and tested the fit with a similar-sized object, impressed by the precision of the foam. Looks like this will work perfectly, Tomas noted. Once it sets around the bowl, it'll be like a custom cradle. With the logistics settled, they returned to their discussion on the cultural exchange program. Lyria took detailed notes, her excitement growing with each suggestion. Maybe we can start small, Tomas suggested. A few artists from each side, a collaborative project, something like what we've done here but on a larger scale. Yes, and it could culminate in an exhibition, Lyria proposed. One on Earth and one on Xylenia. Showcase what we've created together. I could get behind that, Marco said. Art that travels further than we ever could have imagined. As the day progressed, they carefully placed the bowl into its foam cradle, securing it in a sturdy transport crate. The finality of the packing brought a bittersweet feeling to the group. They had created something unique and were now sending it off into the cosmos. Safe travels, little bowl, Ji-hoon murmured as they sealed the crate. Lyria looked at each of her friends. This isn't just a farewell for the bowl. It's the beginning of something much bigger. Thank you, all of you, for everything. The crate, ready and secure, was a physical manifestation of their friendship and collaboration. As they stood in the studio, surrounded by the tools of their trade and the remnants of their creative endeavor, they felt a collective sense of accomplishment and anticipation for the future possibilities. Chapter 7. A Promise Between Worlds. The studio felt unusually quiet the morning of Lyria's departure. The bowl had been shipped off the previous day, destined for Xylenia, and now the team gathered one last time to bid farewell to their alien friend and collaborator. Tomas brought in a batch of fresh coffee, setting it on the table where they had shared many meals and even more conversations. "I can't believe it's already time to say goodbye," he said, handing a cup to Lyria. "It feels surreal," Lyria admitted, accepting the cup. "I've learned so much here, made memories that I'll carry with me always." Marco and Ji-hoon joined them, each wearing expressions mixed with sadness and pride. "You're always welcome back, Lyria," Marco said. "Remember, you've got a second home here now. And don't forget about our plan for the exchange program," Ji-hoon added. "We're serious about coming to Xylenia." We've got to see how our bowl is received by your people." Lyria smiled, her eyes misty. "I will make all the arrangements. And I'm excited to show you my world, as you've shown me yours." Tomas cleared his throat, shifting the mood to something lighter. "We should make today a good day, a day of celebration, not sadness. What do you say we spend it doing something fun, all of us together?" "That sounds perfect," Lyria agreed. "What do you have in mind?" "How about a trip to the city? We could visit some art galleries, have a nice lunch downtown, make a day of it," Tomas suggested. The group was quick to agree, eager to make the most of their final day together. They left the studio, locking up behind them, and headed into the city. Their first stop was a contemporary art gallery featuring works from emerging Earth artists. As they wandered through the exhibits, Lyria was fascinated by the diversity of styles and techniques. "These pieces are so different from what we've been working on," she observed. "Yet, there's something universal about the way art speaks to us, isn't there? It's the language of emotion, of human, sentient experience," Tomas replied. "It transcends worlds." They continued their tour, stopping for lunch at a rooftop restaurant that offered a panoramic view of the city. Over meals, their conversation flowed from memories of their project to dreams about the future. "I've got an idea," Marco said as they were finishing their desserts. "Why not start planning a joint exhibition here on Earth before we head to Xylenia? We could feature the bowl as the centerpiece." "That's a fantastic idea," Ji-hoon chimed in. "It could build more interest in our exchange program and draw attention to the unity of our creative endeavors." Lyria was touched by their initiative. "Let's do it. It would be a wonderful way to keep building on what we've started." The afternoon passed with more visits to galleries and a casual stroll through a city park. As the sun began to set, they found themselves back at the studio to collect Lyria's belongings. Standing amidst the familiar clutter of their creative space, Tomas handed Lyria a small, wrapped package. "A little something for you to remember us by," he said. Lyria unwrapped it to find a miniature replica of the bowl they had created, crafted by Tomas the night before. "Oh, Tomas, it's beautiful. Thank you. I will treasure this always." Each said their goodbyes with hugs and promises to visit soon. As Lyria stepped into the transport that would take her back to her ship, she looked back at her friends, her heart full. "We'll see each other soon," she called out. "This isn't the end, just the next chapter." And with those parting words, the transport door closed, leaving Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon watching as their friend departed, their hearts heavy but hopeful for the future they had started to weave together. Chapter 8. Echoes of Clay and Stars. Months had passed since Lyria's departure, and the studio had returned to its usual rhythm. However, the impact of their interstellar collaboration lingered in the air, inspiring Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon to push the boundaries of their usual projects. One crisp morning, Tomas was arranging the latest pieces for an upcoming local exhibition when his computer chimed with an incoming message. He clicked it open, revealing a video message from Lyria, her face breaking into a warm smile as she greeted him from across the stars. "Hello, Tomas, Marco, Ji-hoon. I hope this message finds you well," Lyria began, her voice crackling slightly through the digital transmission. "I wanted to give you an update on the bowl. It's become a centerpiece in our planetary rejuvenation efforts and has been received with incredible honor and enthusiasm." Tomas called out to his friends, who quickly gathered around the screen. Lyria continued, showing them clips of the bowl in various settings on Xylenia, surrounded by lush greenery that had begun to flourish around it. "It's not just a bowl anymore," Lyria explained. "It's a symbol of our shared vision, a catalyst in our ecological recovery. And I have more good news," she added, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Marco leaned in, his interest piqued. "What's up, Lyria?" "I've secured funding for the first official exchange program," Lyria announced. "A group of Xylenian artists will be traveling to Earth next month, and we hope some of you will return with them for the inaugural exhibition on Xylenia." The studio erupted in cheers, each artist clapping the others on the back. "We did it, guys!" Ji-hoon exclaimed, his face alight with joy. "We're going to need to prepare," Tomas said, already thinking ahead. "We have to show them the best of Earth's art. And maybe some live music," Ji-hoon suggested, unable to hide his enthusiasm for sharing his guitar skills intergalactically. "I'll handle the culinary welcome," Marco added. "We'll give them a taste of Earth they won't forget." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon prepared a series of workshops and exhibitions to showcase during the Xylenian visit. They coordinated with local artists, set up cultural exchanges, and curated a selection of works that highlighted the diversity and creativity of Earth. The day the Xylenian artists arrived, the studio was buzzing with energy. Earth artists mingled with their alien counterparts, sharing techniques, stories, and laughter. The exchange was more than just about art. It was about forging a deep, lasting connection between two very different cultures through their shared love for creativity. As the Earth exhibition opened, visitors from all walks of life, and now from across the galaxy, came to see the collaborative works. The highlight was the panel discussion where Tomas and Lyria spoke about their project, the challenges they faced, and the bridges they built through art. "The bowl was just the beginning," Tomas told the crowded room, Lyria nodding in agreement beside him. "This exchange, these friendships we've formed, they're the real masterpiece we've created." The exhibition was a resounding success, leading to plans for the next one on Xylenia. As the festivities wound down, Tomas, Marco, and Ji-hoon stood together, looking over the gallery filled with laughter, conversation, and shared understanding. "Who would have thought," Marco said, a broad smile on his face, "that clay and a bit of curiosity would bring together two worlds?" "It's the power of art," Ji-hoon added. "It knows no bounds." Tomas looked around, his heart full. Here's to many more chapters of this incredible journey. As the evening drew to a close, the echoes of their laughter mingled with the soft strumming of Ji-hoon's guitar, a sound that now resonated not just through their studio, but across the stars. The promise of future collaborations, of more exchanges and shared moments, was a thrilling prospect. And as they locked up the studio that night, the sky seemed a little closer, the stars a little brighter, connected by the enduring echoes of clay and creativity.